How do you end up getting a crystal gem? Well, quite simply put, there's going to end up being U11 difficulty worlds now, which obviously is going to end up being insanely difficult for the average player. But what I would recommend is if you can really, really rush towards getting 30k PR, which I know is difficult for the average player, then you could end up just getting into the world, getting your foot in the door, and just following somebody else around. Now, another thing that I think is very, very important to mention, because, you know, you might not have actually farmed any of the other elemental worlds for a very long time, but the way that the game is going to end up working in terms of your crystal gems is each of the different elemental worlds is going to end up dropping a different elemental gem box. Duh. But when you end up doing U11, it's going to end up dropping an elemental gem box of that specific gem dust type. So geode surface ends up dropping cosmic gem boxes, water gem boxes for water world, air for air, fire for fire, so on and so forth. But these boxes are going to end up having stellar gems commonly and crystal gems rarely. You can end up getting gem sparks as well, which is a whole other resource that is required for upgrading your gems, which we'll talk about in another video. That's going to be a video focusing on a gem guide specifically. But last but not least, there's going to end up being the prime worlds. Now, the big appeal of the new prime worlds is that in both U10 and U11, there's going to end up being a new 5-star dungeon related to the newest biome, right? And the cool thing is that this 5-star dungeon technically is infinite. It's going to end up slowly scaling in difficulty, but if you're fast enough and have a good enough farm going, you can essentially just keep fighting bosses over and over and opening chests over and over. However, this would seem awesome, save for the fact that in prime Uber worlds, the gem box is actually a percentage chance to drop. So any of the other elemental worlds, like if you complete a dungeon in Geode Topside, you get a Geode Topside box, you get a cosmic gem box. But if you end up completing a dungeon in Prime World, you might not actually end up getting a gem box. And I know that a lot of people are going to make the argument that the 5-star dungeon being infinite means that you would potentially end up getting tons and tons of gem boxes, which is unintentional. However, you got to remember that the fact that prime worlds have a percentage chance of dropping gem boxes is an old school thing that's been in the game ever since gem boxes were implemented. This was not something that they strategically put in place because of the new 5-star dungeons being infinite. I would also argue that even though a 5-star dungeon is going to end up being infinite, which does end up meaning that it's very efficient to end up farming gem boxes if they were at 100% drop chance, it doesn't necessarily mean that it would end up being the most efficient way of farming any type of specific gem type, because it would still be more efficient for me to go to water world to end up getting water gems. The argument that I'm making is if I'm not doing a 5-star dungeon, I feel like I'm wasting my time by being in a prime world.